Hello, hello. I think I am probably live now. Now, I always need to check in the group to make sure that I'm going live. Let me just have a look. Yes, I am. Okay, great. So, hello everyone, and welcome to my impromptu little video in our Cracks That Let the Light In Facebook group. And welcome if you're catching this live. Also, welcome if you're catching it on the replay. It's quite likely I'll also put this video on my YouTube channel because I'm going to be talking about a fairly general topic, although it's very relevant to those of you who've been through the Cracks That Let the Light In coaching immersion with me. Um, so wherever you're tuning in from and however you're tuning in, welcome. I'm very glad to have you here. Thank you very much for being here. And um, yes, the reason this came about, this was completely unplanned, completely unexpected. But I wanted to connect with you because I have just come out of a coaching session, a group coaching session, which I'm a member of. I'm a participant in. Hi, Kerry. Hi, nice to see you here. Thank you very much for thank you very much for tuning in at such short notice. It is literally a kind of I'm going live in 5 minutes and then I'm on. So it's really great that you're able to be here. Um, so I've been in this coaching immersion that this coaching group program that I'm a member of, and we had a really interesting session tonight which I just wanted to share with you, or it prompted some thinking that I wanted to share with you. And part of the session was all of us answering a question that was posed to us by our coach, um, who led the session by saying, let's basically, it was about, let's talk about the most common coaching obstacles we all face. And what was interesting about it was we're all in different niches. So some of us, like me, are business coaches and energetic coaches and so on. Others are coaches who are working directly with people one to one on issues like health and fitness or finances or relationships. So all kinds of different niches. And the idea of the exercise was to see if there was some commonality amongst us in terms of the most common sticking points for coaching topics. Did we experience similar sticking points, or did we all, or were we all experiencing different ones? And probably not surprisingly, we discovered that we all were experiencing pretty similar coaching sticking points with our clients. And the one that I submitted into the conversation and one that others very definitely resonated with in terms of seeing similar things with their clients was the issue of being stuck. So, very often when I work with coaching clients, and this has been true when I've worked in other niches to the one I'm in now. So I've coached people as a general life coach in the past. I've coached people on healthy lifestyle. Around the time that I wrote my book Real Food Revival Plan, I was focused very much on that kind of healthy eating, healthy exercise, healthy lifestyle niche. Even prior to that, when my first book came out, How to Find Your Vital Vocation, that was very much about career guidance. And so at that time, much of my coaching was on career guidance and career support and job changing and all that kind of stuff. But whichever niche I've been working in and whichever niche my fellow coaches in this group were in, we were all finding that this issue of being stuck was a very common issue. And it shows up in different ways. It shows up as just a general feeling of stuckness. It can show up as a feeling of clients saying, I don't really know what it is that I want to work on. So one of the things that we ask as a coach, of course, is, what would you like to work on? What do you want to be coached on? What are you trying to achieve? What goal are you hoping to work towards? And very often, clients will say, I don't know. I feel stuck. I feel stuck about even knowing what it is that I want to work towards. Or they may know, but feel stuck about how to start on the process that they need to start in order to move forward in whatever direction they want to go in. Or they may say that they are able to start, but as soon as they start, they find themselves stopping again because they get stuck. They don't know where to go after they've started the process. And also the issue of running out of steam, burning out. So maybe getting to a certain point within a coaching process and maybe even making some really good headway in a coaching process and through a coaching, sort of working on a coaching goal or working towards a coaching goal, making good headway, making good progress, and then grinding to a halt and running out of steam. These are all different ways of being stuck or feeling stuck. And we were all just reflecting in this group about why this was and what was the were there any common causes and what did it mean for us? Well, the other thing, of course, was that we all talked about the fact that we've had this experience as well. We've all been through the process of starting something and then being stuck and running out of steam or not being clear about how to move forward. So it's a really, really common issue. And I think anyone who's tried to do what I know many of you are trying to do in this group, which is to build soul-based businesses, to get coaching businesses off the ground or to get them into a position of having more clients or a steadier flow of income or scaling up, moving on to the next level of the business. These are all uh, sort of environments, energetic environments in which challenges will arise and therefore we'll encounter the possibility of getting uh, or feeling stuck. And what we reflected on in the group and what was really interesting to me is that all of this really is about resistance that comes up within us as we move forward. Usually, the causes for stuckness are not external causes. They're not usually things out there that are actually stopping us from moving forward because almost any external obstacle can be worked around or it can be got over or it can be dismantled because external obstacles are usually, not always, but usually just a case of lacking information. So we don't know how to move forward, but we can find that information. Or maybe there's some kind of difficult thing we have to do externally. Things like knowing, for example, that the time has come to set up a website and being a bit stuck about how to do that. But there are always ways around that. We can learn how to set up a website. We can outsource the task of setting up a website. We can decide not to set up a website and use a workaround. So, earlier today, really interesting. I was talking to someone who's in the coaching space who has just put together an offer for her new coaching program, and it's a fairly high ticket program. And I'm pretty sure she's going to sell it out because she's got a lot of interest. And not only does she not have a website to advertise this program through, she doesn't even have a web page to advertise the program through. She doesn't even have a landing page, and she's not doing it just through social media. She's using a Google Doc, and on the Google Doc, she's written her kind of sales page, her blurb, and there's a link at the bottom to a PayPal link to pay her for this program, and she's getting sales. So there are workarounds. All the external obstacles we encounter, we'll be able to work around. The more challenging obstacles, the ones that really get us stuck, are the internal ones, are the ones where our own brain stops us from moving forward and keeps us in a place of stuckness. So, why is that? What is the reason for that? And one of my friends in this group is a coach that specializes in uh, neuroplasticity, and so knows a lot about brain chemistry and brain science and how it all works together on an electrical and structural basis. And he was talking about the fact that there's a neurological reason for this. The reason, and I'm paraphrasing probably very badly here, but he was explaining that the front part of our brain, which is dealing with the more kind of higher learning activity and higher thinking, will learn how to do things. And once it's learned how to do them, it will push them back into the back part of our brain, the more primitive part of our brain, which does things on automatic pilot. And our brains get used to doing as much as they can safely on automatic pilot because it's a very efficient way of working, and it's about keeping us stable and safe and secure. So the neurology of it all, the kind of brain science of it all, is that that part of our brain, and we often hear about it being described as the primitive brain or the lizard brain or the automatic brain, is helping us to do things in our life and in our work as well as automatically as it possibly can. And it wants safety. It wants predictability. It wants us to not do anything risky. And it's a survival mechanism. The problem with this survival mechanism is very often what happens is our brain feeds us the same information on a bit of a loop. And if that information, if those thoughts, in other words, are thoughts that are trying to keep us safe but are doing so by telling us we can't do something, or that if we do this thing it's going to go wrong, or if we do this thing, what's the point because it probably won't work anyway, or even if we do this thing it's going to be dangerous to us, it's too scary to do it. If it's feeding us those things on a loop, we the risk we run is that we get to the point where we're no longer able to differentiate between habitual thinking, habitual brain feeding, and higher level thinking, which is about knowing that sometimes we have to do difficult things, knowing we sometimes have to do things that are scary for us, knowing that we sometimes have to do things that expand our comfort zone. That's the often the only way we can move forward, particularly in business. You know, if you're an entrepreneur, and those of you in this group are, then it can be scary to try these things. It can be scary to put ourselves out there and say, I'm looking for clients and I want these clients to pay me, and here's an offer and it looks like this, and you know, it's going to help you achieve this thing that you want to achieve, and effectively I'm going to sell it to you. That can be a scary thing if we're not used to it. And there's a whole host of other things in entrepreneurship that are scary. So, if we're in a position where our brain is feeding us this kind of habitual stay still, don't move forward message, stay safe, then we need to find ways of working through it. And we talked about some of that, of course, in the depth coaching masterclass that I ran earlier in this immersion. But I want to just put to you about the issue of resistance is here in this video is to just invite you to think about it in a particular way, because what we often do, and I see this again and again with my clients, and I also see it with myself, this is one of the things I have done in the past and have to consciously choose not to do now, is when this resistance comes up to moving forward, because we've got a conflict going then, because we want to move forward on the one hand, and yet we have this resistance to moving forward in the other, this creates a conflict, a tension within us, and it's incredibly tiring. The worst thing we can do, there's a couple of worst things we can do in this situation. One is to just try and bulldoze through that resistance without acknowledging it or noticing it's there, because that kind of dismisses it and is likely not to work because it will, remember, it's a survival mechanism, so it will probably come back stronger in order to keep us safe. That's one of the not good things we can do. The other not good thing we can do is to shame ourselves and blame ourselves and guilt trip ourselves with thoughts like, I shouldn't feel this way. There's something wrong with me for feeling this way. Why can't I get myself together? Why can't I do these things that I know I need to do? I'm so stupid. I'm just not able to discipline myself. I'm never going to get this right. I'm going to fail. All of the thoughts. And then we have a very sticky situation, literally, because we have thoughts sticking to each other. The initial thought, I can't do this. It's not safe, or whatever that initial thought is, plus the shaming and blaming thoughts. I'm not good at this. I'm not getting this right. I'm not cut out for this. This isn't right for me. I should be better than I am at this. All these different thoughts that come on, the shaming and the blaming. And that can be extremely tiring. extremely self-harming because these thoughts aren't true. And so I want to just share with you some of my perspectives on how we should deal with this situation. And one of the ways, the first way, is simply to notice. So when resistance comes up for us and we're trying to move forward, but we can't because of inner resistance, instead of instantly going into trying to dismantle it or feeling critical about it, the first thing to do is just notice and acknowledge that that's what's happening. And it's just as simple as, that's interesting. Here I am trying to write my book, say, or develop my coaching program, or uh, implement my fitness kick, whatever it is we're trying to do, and something's stopping me. I'm procrastinating. I'm talking myself out of doing it. I'm arranging other things around so I don't have time. All the ways that resistance shows up, just noticing, first of all, noticing. And then the other thing that comes with that in the noticing that's really helpful, I find, is to be grateful for it, to express gratitude to that resistance. So that's about reminding ourselves that the resistance within us is a survival mechanism that's trying to keep us safe. It perceives danger in what we're doing, because there is always danger in putting ourselves out there and doing something new and scary, particularly if it's public, like going live in a Facebook group or putting a coaching offer out there or publishing a book, whatever it is for us. There is something scary in that. And so the survival mechanism is perceiving this scariness and is trying to keep us safe. We should be grateful for that because it's the same survival mechanism that keeps us safe in situations where we really are in danger. It doesn't know that this scary thing we're doing isn't jumping off a cliff without a parachute or isn't running through the jungle where there might be a saber-toothed tiger ready to jump out at us. It doesn't know that. It's not it's too primitive to know that. It just senses danger and stops us in our tracks. So being grateful for that and acknowledging the usefulness of that is a really important step. And this is what I do, I even talk to it and thank it. Thank you for keeping me safe. Thank you for looking out for me. But we're going to be okay. We can do this. Yes, this is a scary thing, but we can do this. I say we because I'm talking about me in my higher self position, or the part of me that wants to move forward and sees the potential and knows that I can do it, and also this more primitive part of me that's trying to keep me safe. We can do it. And by bringing them together in that acknowledgement, what I find very often happens is the resistance, if it doesn't dissolve completely, it it dissipates somewhat. It reduces, and then we can move forward. We can start working towards our goal. So the first thing is noticing and acknowledging and the first thing is noticing. Second thing is thanking it and acknowledging the usefulness of it. Then we'll get to the bit where we start untangling some of that in a second. But before we get there, I want to talk about conscious resting. Because very often what we need to do at this point, especially if we've been battling with our resistance for a long time, is to acknowledge to ourselves how tired this has made us and rest as a result. And by rest, I mean consciously rest. So you probably will recognize when I talk about the difference between unconscious resting. I don't mean unconscious resting as in when you pass out and you're unconscious, you're definitely resting then. I mean unconscious resting, sort of resting that we do without even knowing we're doing it, and resting that is consciously planned and implemented. And here's why it's important to know the difference. Unconscious resting can look like something, there's nothing wrong with this, but it can look like flopping down in front of the television after a busy day and mindlessly watching TV, flicking through the channels, eating crisps or whatever your snack of choice is, having a drink, maybe dozing, etc. Nothing wrong with that. That in itself can be very healing and restorative. But have you ever had the experience where you flop down in front of the television, you mindlessly flick through channels for several hours, you maybe doze, maybe even fall asleep, or you eventually go to bed and you rest? Have you ever had the experience of, after doing that, almost thinking, what did I do with that time? And why don't I feel more rested? Almost like you missed it. You missed the rest. Now, sometimes we just need to flop out, and it needs to be very kind of unconscious and unplanned, because that's just what our body needs, and it'll make us do it. But conscious resting is about acknowledging ahead of time, or when the moment really intensifies with the resistance, where we think this is getting a bit much for me now, I'm trying to move forward and can't, to take a step back and consciously rest. Consciously resting might mean deciding consciously and proactively, I am now going to stop thinking about this thing I've been trying to solve for however long, and I'm going to watch a film or two films or three films in a row, or I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to read a book, or I'm going to have a hot bath, or I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to rest, I'm going to relax, I'm going to rejuvenate, and I'm going to do it consciously in recognition of the fact that this is a proactive step I can take that will move me forward ultimately. Now, when it's right to rest and we do it consciously, in my experience, very often the quality of the rest is so much deeper than the unconscious kind. It's a bit like we give ourselves, our bodies and our minds and our spirits, permission to rest deeply. And it can be a hugely healing, restorative, empowering thing to do. And a top level entrepreneurial creative skill. We tend not to think about resting as being a skill, but true resting is a skill. Because if we can truly rest, when we come back to trying to achieve our goal or work through the resistance that we're experiencing, we've got so much more energy and uh, mental capacity and heart capacity to be able to do it. So conscious resting is a really important part of the equation. Noticing the resistance we're in, thanking it for being there and keeping us safe, resting consciously if we need to, and then we can do some of the untangling of the resistance. So, how might we untangle the resistance that we're stuck within? How might we take time to get past the resistance we're in? Well, we talked about some of that in the depth coaching masterclass, and I shared with you some techniques in that masterclass about how to do it. I think one of the most powerful techniques in there is the inquiry-based stress reduction technique that I shared with you, where we identify a thought that's causing us stress or tension or resistance, and we inquire into it. So we kind of peek beneath the covers of the thought and see what it's made of, which is usually not very much at all. So that's asking the thought, is it true? Can I absolutely know that it's true? How do I react when I think that thought? Who would I be without the thought? And then turning the thought around and trying the opposites on for size. So inquiry-based stress reduction, sometimes called the work or the work of Byron Katie. And by going through this process, when we get to the opposites, we can try them on for size, and we can start moving forward with those opposites as an option for us to explore. So an example I can give you is in my own life is I used to, when I was younger, completely believe that I was a person who was intrinsically doomed to unfitness for the rest of my life because I didn't like sport. I was quite overweight as a child. I didn't enjoy exercise. I felt embarrassed about exercising in front of people. I had this whole kind of mindset and self concept of myself as being somebody who just wasn't physically active. And because of that, I, looking back now, and I can look back now with a great deal of compassion um, for my younger self and see that I encountered many opportunities in my life before I've finally sorted this out. But I encountered many opportunities to learn how to enjoy exercise, participate in exercise, either privately or in a group, learn about how to eat healthily, learn about how to look after myself on a physical level. But I didn't see those opportunities because my mind was in this space of I'm not somebody who is fit or can ever be fit or would ever want to even learn how to be fit. And it's only when I shifted my mindset that my body changed, that I lost weight, that I got fit, that I eventually wrote a book, which is probably lying somewhere around here, and wrote a book on the subject of exercise and physical fitness and healthy eating. Now, if you had asked the little podgy 7-year-old me who knew that he was unfit and overweight and felt very self-conscious about it, that he would ever, one, be able to get any of that, to shift any of that for himself, and two, be able to write on the subject and coach on the subject and teach on the subject, he would have laughed because it just seemed like an impossibility. But it wasn't an impossibility. But it only became a possibility when my mind shifted first. And it shifted when I realized that I could question some of these assumptions about myself. So it's very powerful to be able to do that. And I've done it multiple times in my life, and I've done it multiple times with clients. Another uh, example for me, and you can look at fairly recent examples of this in terms of how I present myself online. There was a time when I felt I had to appear rather corporately in the coaching world. So when I started off as a coach, particularly because I was coaching in the subject of careers, that was my initial coaching niche, I thought I had to be quite corporate. So I tended to wear quite corporate looking clothes and speak in quite corporate looking language. And I had a fairly corporate looking website and all that kind of stuff. And my biography was quite buttoned down and corporate. And at some point, I realized that this was not the fullness of who I am, either as a person or as a coach. And at the same time, I was kind of compartmentalizing different parts of myself. So, I have a high level job as a chief executive of a non-governmental organization here in the UK. I have my coaching practice, which I've developed over a number of years. And then on the side of all of that, I have my interest in tarot and mystical things and all that kind of woo-woo stuff. And they were very separate. I kept them all in very separate compartments. But now I don't. Now I tend to bring them together. I mean, I've just recently done a rebrand of my website, and I'm on the front page of my website. It's also my Facebook profile picture at the moment. There I am in a pointy wizard's hat holding my little black cat Gizmo, and I feel completely comfortable with that. And I post things on social media now that I think more and more are sharing my personality. A few years ago, certainly if you'd asked the me of 12 years ago who wrote How to Find Your Vital Vocation, and there's a picture of me on the back in my, I don't have a tie on, but I've got a proper formal shirt on. If you had told that me that a few years later I would have a website in which I looked like a wizard dress up person, wizard cosplay with an actual black cat, going on about being a business activation expert and helping people build magical, abundant businesses, he would have thought that you were sniffing glue. But here I am. I'm much more comfortable and confident in embodying that now. Why? Because I questioned the thoughts that told me I couldn't. And in doing that, the resistance against showing up that way fell away. And in doing that, my business has only grown. My client roster has only grown. My income has only grown. So questioning these thoughts that keep us stuck. So powerful. So that was a bit of a canter through. We're at about half an hour, so I wanted to keep this fairly short for you. So some tips for you if you are up for this. If you are hearing this and thinking, yes, I want to work through some inner resistance, the advice I can give you is if you are a cracks that lets the light in member currently, then of course the things to do are reread your inner knowing messages. You have 28 or 29 of those, I think, and reread them again with a different perspective, maybe with the perspective of working through whatever resistance you're dealing with. That would be the first recommendation. Another recommendation would be to revisit the depth coaching masterclass, because I share in there some very powerful techniques for working through any obstacle that we might face so that we create a crack that lets the light in. That's what this is about. If your particular area of resistance relates to business, building a business, either a coaching business or another soul-based service oriented business, then there's also the soul-based business masterclass, which you can watch as well. So I'd recommend that. And the other thing that I would recommend is that you go back to our opening ceremony, because in that opening ceremony, if you remember, I do a guided meditation and I do a card pull. And in that guided meditation, we go deeply into ourselves and we access a part of ourselves that has a gift for us. And you can go back to that meditation multiple times at different points for the rest of your life and receive an appropriate gift for whatever moment you are in. So even if you've done that meditation, you can do it again and see what gift you get this time, because it will be relevant to whatever issue it is that you're dealing with. So that's something else to think about. And then the other thing I want to say to you, because this video might go onto YouTube, or almost certainly will go onto YouTube, if you haven't been part of the Cracks That Let the Light In immersion, then you can be, because you can now access all of the material from the Cracks That Let the Light In as an instant access, instant replay pass. I'll put the link for that in the description of this video. But you'd have access then to the daily inner knowing messages for 29 days from the point at which you enter the program, and you'll have immediate access to the opening ceremony with its guided visualization and its guided card pull. You'll have access to the depth coaching masterclass. You'll have access to the soul-based business masterclass, and you'll have access to this, of course, because it's already there. So thank you for being with me in this time, and thank you for bearing with me as I did this impromptu extra live video. I hope it's been useful to you, and if there's any insights you've gained from this or any questions you have, please do pop those in the comments and I'll do my best to come back to them and answer them. So hope you're all well, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye everyone. Bye Kathleen, glad to see you're here. You're very welcome. See you again soon. Bye.